I'm not invisible, am I? Welcome back to a new episode of Potions and Processing. I am your host, Raven White. In last week's episode, we talked about some of the things that's been happening in my life since I was gone for a little while. And I talked about my new glasses and my optic neuritis and my experience going to a very rude ophthalmologist and how prevalent it is to have an experience as a femme-presenting person or as a woman going to the doctor, a male doctor specifically, and being treated in a rude fashion and how often that occurs. This week I want to talk about the invisibility part of an invisible illness. There's a lot of different layers to this side of having a chronic illness. And for me, it's one of the most difficult and challenging parts of being chronically ill is having basically all of my symptoms be invisible and having it all inside where only I can see it. I want to talk about, is there a way to make our invisible illness visible? First, I want to back up a little bit and talk about how I was kind of raised, because I feel like many of us were raised in the same kind of thought pattern. And even though my childhood was really extreme and really not great, I feel that a lot of millennials were kind of raised in the tone of pick yourself up by the bootstraps, grown men don't cry, boys don't cry, and no matter what your gender is, you just do what you have to do, you don't complain. And if you're poor, you don't go to the doctor until you're about to die, basically. Now, I was raised really incredibly poor, and we basically never went to the doctor. And so when I became a young adult and I was out on my own, the thought just never occurred to me to ever go to the doctor. And so when I was young and I had like really severe gallbladder disease, I could not afford to go to the doctor. I couldn't afford to have the surgery. And so I just got sicker and sicker and sicker until I literally I had to have it. And then I was in debt because I couldn't pay for it. And so I had to just pay the surgery off over time. And that took a long time. And it was really hard because I was in college full time and I was working full time on a minimum wage job. And I still I couldn't qualify for like Medicaid or anything at the time. So it was really difficult and challenging and not great. But I toughed it out. I did what I had to do and I got by because that's what I was taught to do. When you live with chronic pain and chronic illness all of your life, it just becomes a part of you, and you, to a degree, become desensitized to it because you learn to live with it. You grow alongside of it, and it becomes so ingrained into you that you almost can't tell yourself apart from it anymore. And that's what it was like for me anyway. So this being used to being in pain, this being used to, suffering, I just never talked about it. I never talked about it because what was the point? It is always with me. It is always here. Why talk about it? And when I did talk about it, it made everyone around me uncomfortable, which then made me uncomfortable. And it was just easier to disappear. And I realize now that by making it easier on everybody else, I made it so much harder for myself. And that sometimes you have to make people uncomfortable. Sometimes you have to talk about the hard things, and you have to be real, not just with everyone around you, but with yourself. And sometimes being real with yourself is the scariest, most uncomfortable thing that you can do. So last year, when my symptoms started to get really, really bad, here's kind of what happened. Throughout the years since I had my child, I had started to experience more neurological problems, some numbness off and on, some tingling in my limbs off and on, and some forgetfulness. But I always attributed it to tiredness, to being busy, to, working too hard, whatever. And it is so easy to dismiss strange symptoms in your body when you're busy, when you're tired, when you're all of these things. But your body never lies to you, okay? Just so you know, your body doesn't lie. Your body is always screaming out to you the truth. It is just up to us to determine what that truth is and whether or not we are willing to listen, whether or not we are capable of understanding. And many times, what it is our body is telling us can be misunderstood until we are fully capable of understanding. But anyway, things started to get worse and worse. And over the years, I started having numbness in my toes. And I thought, oh, well, that must be my socks, or it must be my shoes, or something like that. It was not. But in the start of last year, in the beginning of last year, towards the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025, my cognitive skills severely started to decline. I was forgetting tasks that I'd done my entire life. In the middle of them, I could feel myself suddenly forgetting the next step in things. And I would be frustrated. I was having more and more instances of walking into places and not remembering why I was there, tripping over my sentences, forgetting words, misplacing things and not being able to find them, forgetting the names of people that I knew my whole life or that I'd known for a really long time. And it was very, very frightening. I started to drop things. My clumsiness had increased significantly. I was bumping into things. I was covered in bruises all of the time. I was in so much more pain throughout my whole body. My joints hurt so bad. I had this peripheral tingling sensation. My whole body was vibrating on the inside is the only way that I could describe it. My bones were vibrating under my skin. It was so uncomfortable and so scary, and it felt at times it almost felt like me was outside, I was outside of my body in a way. I wasn't in control of anything anymore. Everything was invisible to everyone else. And I felt crazy. I second-guessed everything. I thought I was making it up. If I thought about it, too much, I thought, well, if I'm thinking about it, maybe I'm making it happen. Maybe it's just psychosomatic. Maybe I'm stressed. And I did have a lot of stress in my life at that time. Don't we all? I just attributed it to so many other things. But eventually it came to a point where I was too scared to attribute it to anything else. And so I went to my pain management doctor with a list. I made a list of everything that I had. And I think I've talked about this in one of my other videos, and I told him about it, and then I got my brain scans. But the worst part about the whole thing, and the worst part about it now, is everything is invisible and nobody can see what's happening to me. Nobody understands what is happening. And it is so lonely and isolating to experience this in my body and watch the world go on around me with no one noticing. I try to talk about it more. I talk about my pain. I talk about how I'm feeling, how it feels to basically feel like I'm disappearing. And that is what it feels like. It feels like bits and pieces of me have just disappeared. And they are. There are parts of me that are gone now. And they're not coming back. And I have to make peace with that and figure out how to build around them. And it's difficult because other people around me, they don't see me that way. They don't see yet that those pieces are gone. They still see me as the same version of myself that I was. Sometimes my friends or, my loved ones will say things like, I don't see you any differently, or, I don't see your limitations, or I don't see your disabilities. And I know that they mean well when they say that. And I know that is their way of trying to comfort me, and by saying, oh, I don't see your disabilities. I don't see you as a disabled person. I don't see you as less than. I don't see you any differently. And I know that that's their way of trying to comfort me and make sure that I know that they aren't going to like abandon me or leave me or anything like that. And I appreciate that. But in the same way, it also feels kind of dismissive, if I'm being honest, because I need to be seen differently. I need it to be acknowledged that I am different. And I need to, I don't want to be seen as the same person that I was. And I don't want people to expect me to be the same person that I was. And I feel like a lot of, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of chronically ill people or disabled people, we're all kind of in the same boat together, where we're held up to an expectation in society that we're not physically able to maintain. We live in a world that is not built for us. It has no space for us. It does not carve out time for us. It makes our existence incredibly difficult to be in. Any kind of assistance is difficult to get and to keep. We're made to feel like burdens. We're made to feel like less than individuals. And we have to fight for our small fraction of happiness in this world in order to live semi-comfortably, in order to just have our basic needs met. Because we are not seen differently than able-bodied people. Or if we are seen differently, it's in a negative light. I was over at my in-laws' house the other day, and I was sitting on the couch, and I had a really bad dizzy spell come over me. Sometimes, even when I'm not moving, if I'm watching something that is moving too fast, I get really bad dizzy spells because my eyes don't track the way they're supposed to anymore. And I was watching my kid play, and they were moving super, super fast. So I had my head down, and I was, kind of going like this, and my father-in-law saw it. I didn't realize it. And afterwards, he asked me, he said, what happened there? Like, what were you doing? And I said, I had a dizzy spell, and he asked me to explain it. I felt very seen in that moment because nobody else noticed or said anything, but he noticed, and he asked, and he was curious, and he wanted to know. He said, I had no idea that MS affected your whole body like that, And every time I see him, he always asks questions, he's always curious about how I'm doing and what's going on. But I felt really seen. He's like, I didn't know. I had no idea that it could affect so much. And I said, yeah, it affects everything. It takes over your whole body. It hijacks you and takes over everything. But little moments like that, where it was visible for just a second, but it took the right kind of, person, the right kind of noticing to be seen. I have tremors now. I try to control it when I'm on camera. It's really hard to do. But if I'm not controlling it, I have tremors in my hands. I hold my hand close to my body. I press my arm into my body, and that helps stabilize my arm so that you don't see it on camera. But maybe I should just let you see it. I don't know. Maybe I should just hold it. Maybe I should let it be visible. I don't know. That's another thing. Do I hide it or do I just let it show? I don't know. How do we make our invisibility visible? What do we do? Because it feels vulnerable to put yourself out here like this and let everybody just see it the way that it is. And I mean, that's what I'm about. What do you think? How do we do that? When you do that, it also opens you up to a lot of questions. And not all of us are able or have the spoons or, want to answer all of the questions that come with the opening yourself up and having yourself be visible. Maybe there's no good answer. I don't know. But I know for me personally, it feels really lonely. It feels really isolating to have so many things happen inside that nobody else can see. and experience so much debilitating sickness and pain on the inside and look perfectly healthy on the outside. I think the point of this video was to remind you that if you are visible and you're making people around you uncomfortable, it's okay. If you have people in your corner, if you have loved ones, if you have friends, partners, whatever it is, however it lands, and they're supposed to be your people, your comfort, the ones that you turn to, talk to, support you, they should be okay with being uncomfortable. They should be okay with hearing and seeing the hard things. You shouldn't have to bottle it all inside. You shouldn't have to keep it all inside. That's not healthy for you. It's not good for your body. You gotta get it out. Gotta get it out. And not all of us can afford therapy, and I know that, and it's not fair. I think the only way we can make our invisible illness visible is to talk about it and more. Talk about it so much more. Every pain, every tremor, every numb feeling or lack of, I guess, every palpitation, every chill, every fever, every forgetful moment, every panic, every fog, every experience. Talk about it. Share it. Tweet it. Message it. Make a Threads account and just dump it in there. Make a blog. Do something. Do it for you. Do it for you. Do it under a false name. Don't hold it inside. It's okay for you to be visible. Your disability, your illness deserves to be seen, and you deserve to be seen. And you deserve to talk about what you're going through and how you're feeling. And if anybody in your life is making you feel like it is wrong for you to talk about it, or it's wrong for you to be seen, then I don't know that maybe they're the best support person. Maybe you should reevaluate that. Maybe you should think about that. I've had to think about that a lot, about who I can talk to, who I can trust, who I can depend on. And sometimes that shifts. Sometimes the primary person you go to for comfort, or you go to trust with the thoughts about how you're feeling, changes, and that's okay. The life of invisible illness, the life of chronic illness, the life of any illness, the life of any disability, no matter what it is, invisible or not, is so incredibly hard and difficult. We should take advantage of every opportunity that we have, and we should talk about it, and we should scream about it, and we should be loud about it. We should never be silent about it. Never. It's the only way to make our invisible illness visible. It's the only way to make our disability known and recognized, and make people know that, yeah, we're still whole people, and yeah, we're still very much here and able to create and envision and plan and prosper. We just need accessibility and tools and awareness and a little less judgment and more accommodations and understanding. And that's my cat. Her name is Daphne. Say hello, Daphne. Say hello. That's this episode of Potions and Processing, and I hope it was a good one. And I hope you feel seen, because that was my goal this episode. I often don't feel seen, and we need to change that. Daphne, remember, we may be different species, but we are all part of the same family. So please, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and I will see you next week.